Introduction and welcome. My name is Johan Lindberg and I work at Vinnova with the European programs. So as already mentioned, we are webcasting this, so when you're asking questions, please wait until you get the microphone, so then people who are watching on the web can also hear your questions. Also, if you're active on social media, so you have our hashtag VIH2020 if you want to post things about what we're doing here or what your feelings or questions are. The agenda today, the head of department here at Computer Science at Stockholm University has already welcomed us. I will now try to do a short introduction about the ICT programs in Horizon 2020 in the big European research and innovation program. Then my colleague Bogomil Hausman will dive down on the details of the different call for proposals the coming 2 years. And then before the break, we will get to professors from Stockholm University who will share a bit of their experiences from previous participation in the EU programs. We'll have a coffee break, and we will also have those of us that are here in real life, so to say, will have the opportunity to visit the digital arts centers here in the building. And then after the coffee break, we have 2 more programs to present. Excel about international collaboration in ICT, and then also international ICT and Eureka that 2 of my colleagues, Andrei Litvin and Jonas Bjarne, will present. And then we'll have time for questions at the end of the day. And at 4 o'clock we will sort of turn off the camera, but if you want to discuss with us bilateral, you have the chance both in the coffee break and after 4 o'clock that we can answer your questions in bilateral discussions. So first then, ICT opportunities in Horizon 2020. A few brief words about my own organization. So why is Vinnova hosting this kind of information events about international collaboration in ICT? Well, Vinnova is the Swedish governmental agency under the Ministry of Enterprise, and we have about 2.5 billion Swedish kronor to fund research and development in Sweden. So we're a large portion of the agency is a national research and innovation funding agency. But we also have the national responsibility in Sweden for providing information and advice towards the European programs, so Horizon 2020 and other European programs. And that's the main role we're in today when we're trying to explain to you how you can take your ICT ideas on an international scale and collaborate with EU and with the rest of the world through your projects. We are about 200 people working at Vinnova, and we have mainly all of us are sitting here in Stockholm, but we also have a small office in Brussels for the European programs. And our Director General is Charlotte Brogren. Regarding the EU programs, so towards them we have sort of a formalized structure that all member states will have to follow. So in EU, the member states come together and discuss the programs, and they are the member state is represented by someone from a ministry and someone being expert from a public authority. These usually have some kind of reference group, members of the research community to pick up what is going on in Sweden. And then we have the structure, what is called national contact points, that are responsible for information and advice towards the research community, so that you can write good applications and get a lot of EU projects. Regarding ICT, we have the following people. Most of them, I think, is in this room. So the ministry in charge of ICT on the EU scale is the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation, and the responsible person is Johan Harvard. I'm not sure if he has arrived or if he's sitting over there if you want a face on him. He's assisted by experts from Vinnova and from the Research Council. So Bogomil Hausman, who will enter the stage after me, is an expert in this committee, and then also Andreas Augustsson at the Research Council is also assisting. They have a reference group. There are far too many people in it for me to put it on a slide, but they are online, so you can check who is in the reference group. And if you want to join it, I'm sure you can discuss with Bogomil, and he can add you to this group if you want to interact on a regular basis with this group. And then we have the national contact points. It's myself, and then we also have Andrei Litvin. He's somewhere, he might be outside, but he will present after the coffee break. And also Andreas Augustsson at the Research Council. So we are the 3 key people when you start to write the proposal, so get sort of hold of how the proposal system works. Also, As already mentioned, we will hear from experience from two professors here at SU. But really a main advice is to say that, well, Sweden is already or has previously been quite active in the different European programs. So if you're thinking of writing a proposal for EU programs for the first time in your life, do take into account that there's a lot of experience around you somewhere in your organizations or in other organizations you can contact and discuss with. So this, what I want to show with this picture is basically very brief, that well, yes, the two really largest funding agencies is of course the national ones, the Research Council and Vinnova, but the EU money is actually the third largest funding agency in Sweden when it comes to funding national research and innovation in Sweden. So it's quite a large, the Horizon 2020 is quite a large funding agency for Swedish researchers, if you want to put it that way. But with that, I will try to briefly introduce you to Horizon 2020. What is it? How does it work? And just a few short facts in short. So the program, it's a 7-year program running from 2014 to 2020 with a rather huge budget. Almost 80 billion euros are going to be spent on research and innovation during these years. There are a number of changes that is occurring. So the European Commission is talking a lot about the simplifications and how they are simplifying the program. One major simplification or improvement for you, the research community, when you apply, is that they are now running the whole system with what they call biannual work programs. So they publish documents on a biannual basis with all the details of the upcoming calls. So we're now in the position where we know everything about 2016 and 2017, exact deadlines, exact content, how large budgets, etc. So if you're thinking of making a project, you can really look what are the opportunities for the coming 2 years, and this gives sort of the community a better and a better position to plan when are the really interesting deadlines for me. They also simplified quite a lot in the rules and administration. So they now have a max limit from closure of call to start of project. So if you know the deadline of the call, then you know that if you are selected, you will start your project 8 months after the deadline. That was previously very random to know. If I'm happily evaluated or positively evaluated, when will the project actually start? It could depend very much on contract negotiations, etc. But now they have a fixed deadline. So if you know the deadline of the call, then you know that the project will start 8 months later if you are selected. They also simplified quite a lot on the different reimbursement rates. Previously, there was a number of different ways you could get reimbursed. Now there are basically just 2 different rates. Either you get 100% of your direct funding, or you get 70% of your direct funding. And the difference there from the Commission point of view is that they say that, well, if it's a research action, so if it's further from the market or further from products or services, then you should get 100% funding. But if you go close to market, so if you're closer to something that will actually be used in society or become a product or a service, then they lower the reimbursement, so then you only get 70% reimbursement rate. However, the 70% is only for profit-making organizations. So a university or an institute, you still get 100% of your direct costs, even if you're engaged in those sorts of close-to-market actions. As you will see during the afternoon, everything we will talk about will be about international collaboration. So there are very few openings in these systems. If you say, I want to do this on my own, it will all be about doing it together with someone out there. For Horizon 2020, it's manifested with a rule saying that you have to be at least 3 legal entities from 3 different member or associated states. So a Swedish, a Finn, and a Danish, and you have reached the minimum criteria. However, even though it's a European program, the program as such is extremely open to the world. So it's really up to you when you apply. Given what is said in the call for proposal, it will formulate a problem. If you have a great idea on how to solve this problem, it will be very much up to you how you set up that project. What kind of partners do you need? You need to fulfill the minimum criteria of 3 European partners. Once you reach that, it's very much up to you to argue that this kind of problem need cooperation with the US to be solved, or this needs cooperation with Africa, or whatever it is you have on your agenda. So it's extremely open. And what you see on this map, so the dark areas in the map, those are countries that have the same reimbursement rates as you do as Swedish organizations. So Africa, Latin America, etc. As long as you're over the minimum criteria with 3 Europeans, you can add partners from these countries, and they will get the same kind of rights and obligations as you do as Swedes. The yellow parts, what's often referred to as the industrialized countries, they can still participate, but they do not receive any funding from the European Commission. So they have to solve their funding, and then there's sort of a number of different systems. For instance, in Canada there are specific research funding funds that only give money for collaborating with Europe. So Canadians have these kind of funds they can apply to be members of a European project. This can then look different in the different countries, but you have guides in EU's participant portal that describe the different countries. You can read there and say, in China they have this system, or in Japan they have this, and then take a decision on whether or not you can bring them on board. But the system as such is extremely open for participation. As long as you go above the minimum criteria of 3 Europeans, you can rig the project after your needs and your solution of the problem stated in the call. The program as such, and Bogumil will dive deeper into this structure. On the top level is basically 3 different priorities. So the European Commission divide the world into excellent science, industrial leadership, and societal challenges. And these are sort of the political goals over these 3 pillars. So in the excellent science, the political goal is to make sure that we have the best science in Europe, that we make sure that we have the best education and the best researchers that stay in Europe and work here. The industrial leadership is then about making sure that research and development come into use in the industry of Europe, create better competitiveness, new jobs, and that the industry can take the research results, turn them into products and services. And then the societal challenges is basically a mixture of everything. Saying here we want research and development to meet the big societal challenges of the aging population, of the energy needs and resource efficiency in the world, the climate change, etc. So these kind of really broad problems that society is facing, and the research should then be used for development in solving these challenges. And this, of course, then we step into the problem, where do I fit? So it's easy then to make the mistake to say, then university fit in the excellent science, industry fits in the middle, and then the rest is in the last one. But if you start to look at how people participate in this program, they basically spread all over the place, and that's the same message we're coming back to when you start talking about ICT. ICT is more and more moving into this enabling technology, which means it's underpinning something everywhere, and you can't really talk about a isolated ICT program having all the ICT questions, but ICT will pop up in almost every part of the system. I'm just taking the statistics here and say, well, where do companies participate? Shouldn't they participate in the industrial leadership and not elsewhere? Well, as you can see on the picture, they participate everywhere. About 40% of the company participation in Horizon 2020 is in the industrial leadership. But 50% of enterprises, large and small, are participating in the societal challenges, creating product services in order to solve those big challenges that society is facing. And 10%, even though you can say excellent science is fairly a lot about basic research, long-term research, but 10% of the companies are actually participating in those kind of projects with a longer horizon of maybe 10, 15, 20 years doing advanced research. And ICT will basically look the same. It will pop up everywhere in the system. So very brief, these 3 pillars, what different programs do they contain? Well, in the excellent science you have 4 different programs. You have the European Research Council, which is a classical research council. You as a principal investigator apply based on your research idea and can get funding for your research. Future and Emerging Technologies, it's a program for collaborative research, so here you can't apply alone, you have to be partners in Europe collaborating. And this is a program where you have to have an idea and be able to say that I think this scientific phenomena will have effect in somewhere in 10, 15, 20 years. You have to identify the area where you think this will be useful in a product or a service, but it's still a sort of first small project to investigate new ideas that will come into products way out in the future. Marie Curie actions, there are the European Commission's all different programs for mobility. And then the research infrastructure is a program for building and maintaining large class research infrastructures in Europe. And as mentioned, a lot of this is heavily academia, universities participating, but the two mid ones are interesting even also for others. If you have a company that can really work on this 10, 15, 20-year horizon, then the Future and Emerging Technologies program is interesting for you. And also in the Marie Curie actions, a lot of people say that, well, mobility is mainly the universities, it's postdocs, doctors or students moving around. But you have up there the line intersectorial mobility, and what the European Commission mean with that is really industry-academia partnerships, where you still on the mobility in a mobility scheme, but you move from your university to a company for some time and come back, or you in a company take in someone from the university that will work in your company. So here others than the universities can participate. Then we have the industrial leadership. There you have three large programs: the ICT program, the nanomaterials and manufacturing program, and the space program. And that is again my warning not to focus only on the ICT program if you're an ICT researcher, because ICT will be a little bit everywhere, and Bogomil will explain this shortly to you. And then we have the societal challenges, and the European Commission have identified these 7 big challenges where we want research and development to solve problems. So it's health, demographic change and well-being, it's the bioeconomy, it's the energy sector, it's the transport, it's the climate, raw materials, resource efficiency, it's the inclusive, innovative, reflective societies, and it's the secure societies. And all these are really very, very, very broad challenge-based programs. So for instance, the health program, you could say, okay, that's the big pharma and the people doing life science research. Yes, it is, but it's also a lot more. There you will find e-health and different kind of patient data or virtual patients and this kind of ICT solutions for well-being. You will also find sort of services, research on services and products for how to live a healthy life, choose healthy lifestyles, etc. So it's really a broad program taking the full grip on the challenge of health, demographic change and well-being. And in the same way, you can go through all this and say, well, the energy program is not only about how to make energy, it's how to distribute energy, it's how to gear consumer behavior so we use energy when it's readily available, it's about how to store energy. So it's really sort of the challenge of making and securing and having efficiency energy sources and so on. And for all of these, of course, ICT will have a main role as enabling technology. So it can be quite complicated to find your topic and your call if you're an ICT researcher. You should not only look in the ICT program. One good thing, however, is that the European Commission has made this guide for all the calls coming up. So here you have like a 6-page guide pinpointing all the different calls and activities that have some kind of what I would call a heavy ICT component. So there you can look on the title basis and say, okay, it's cloud computing, or it's big data, or it's e-health services, and then you can sort of trigger and say, they've placed the things I'm interested in that call or in this call. So this is really the sort of the key document to start with if you want to find where are the interesting calls, what do they look like. And Bogomil will go through this much more in detail. So this was very brief. The structure of the program, and quite a lot of the program is really top-down. The European Commission says that the demographic change is a big problem, and we would want projects doing this or that in order to solve that problem. There are a few openings for pure bottom-up sort of. You have the idea, and you don't have to fit it into a call. One thing doing this is something called the SME instrument. So if you're a small and medium-sized enterprise, you can apply based on whatever it is your company is doing. And it's a 3-phase program. You can apply for a concept and feasibility study, you can apply for an R&D project, and you can apply for in a commercialization phase. And in the last phase is just coaching and contact with venture cap and business angels and these kind of things, and not any money. But in the first phase you can apply for money for developing something in your company. And they're also at the other end of the spectrum, so to speak, something called Fasttracked Innovation. It's a new thing they started up in 2015, so we don't have that much experience. But here the Commission says that, well, we want to fund projects that help people do this last sprint to the market. So it's still bottom up. It's you who say this is a product or a service that is almost ready, but I need some money to actually put it on the market. It's still collaborative, so you need to be at least 3 partners, but they put a maximum of 5 partners. So it has to be a rather small, quick project, and you can get up to 3 million to do this kind of 1-2 year project to get over some kind of threshold or barrier that is hindering you from reaching the market with this almost ready solution. So this was a very brief introduction to the structure, what the program is about. The main message is that we, the national contact points, are here for you to give you information and advice. We do these kind of days where we talk to you in the broad sense, but we also have courses and one-to-one meetings where you can discuss with us your project idea and what is the best solution for you and in order to apply for a project. We will also have with us today something called EU SME support. So if you're a small and medium-sized enterprise and it's here today, they will be outside. You can see a roll-up out there. It's a support office for small and medium-sized enterprises. You can contact them free of charge and discuss your idea and your opportunities in Horizon, and you can email them on this address. So before handing over to Bogomil, I will say, well, what is my message for you to do next when you have listened to us all day? Well, contact us in the break afterwards or through email, telephone, and discuss your idea and try to let us help you to pinpoint where your opportunities are. Read the guide. There you have all the topics on sort of headline level, what is going on for the coming 2 years. And then I want to flag for this autumn. If you're preparing a proposal this year, you will basically have to start writing it right away. But for next year, 2017, then the European Commission will host what is called an ICT Proposals Day in Bratislava during the Slovak presidency. So if you are planning proposals for 2017, you should be there the 26th, 27th of September. It's the place to be to network with all the other people in Europe doing EU proposals. And with that, I will hand over